Have you ever wondered why some people go to bed feeling fine and never wake up? Every night, thousands of older adults close their eyes expecting to see another morning. But for some, that moment never comes. Their families are left grieving, confused, and asking the same haunting question. What happened? It's easy to think it's just old age, but the truth is far more unsettling. Take Frank Dawson, a 71-year-old retired firefighter, full of life and laughter. He kissed his wife goodnight after a perfectly normal day. By morning, he was gone. Or Linda Hayes, a 68-year-old former librarian whose snoring was once a household joke until the night it stopped, and so did her breathing. These aren't random tragedies. These are silent signals we fail to see. There was Evelyn Brooks, a piano teacher who always felt a soft flutter in her chest. She blamed it on nerves or aging. One night, that flutter turned fatal. And Helen Carter, a disciplined former school principal who took every pill her doctors prescribed. None of them realized that the combination could be deadly while she slept. Walter Reed, a diabetic who skipped dinner thinking it was the healthy choice, until a nighttime blood sugar crash claimed his life. And Grace Bennett, a gentle 91-year-old nurse who passed away peacefully after weeks of quiet withdrawal. Her body wasn't failing, it was letting go. These stories share one thing: they could have ended differently, because there are signs. Subtle, yes, but not invisible. The body whispers before it screams, and in many cases, it doesn't scream at all. This isn't about fear. It's about understanding, about knowing what to look for so you or someone you love doesn't become another quiet tragedy. 6 lives, 6 silent killers. One powerful truth: peaceful sleep should never be a mystery. And tonight, we're uncovering why. Stop 1. Silent heart attacks during sleep. Frank Dawson had always been the picture of strength. At 71, the retired firefighter still walked every morning, volunteered at the local shelter, and chased his grandkids around the yard with the kind of energy most younger men would envy. To anyone who knew him, Frank was in great shape, sharp, dependable, and full of life. That made what happened all the more shocking. It was a Tuesday night. Frank and his wife Elaine had spent the evening watching old westerns on TV. He laughed, stretched, kissed her goodnight, and settled into bed like he had thousands of times before. The next morning, Elaine rolled over and immediately sensed something was wrong. Frank wasn't breathing. His body was still, and he never woke up. Everyone said it must have been his time, that he went peacefully, that it was natural. But when the coroner's report came back, the truth hit harder than anyone expected. Frank had suffered a myocardial infarction, a heart attack, sometime in the middle of the night. There had been no clutching chest pain, no call for help, just a silent collapse into unconsciousness that never reversed. Looking back, the clues had been there. A few weeks earlier, Frank mentioned feeling more tired than usual. He shrugged it off as getting older. He had occasional heartburn, and once or twice, he woke up in the middle of the night feeling off. But it passed, so he ignored it. So did everyone else. What many don't realize is that heart attacks in older adults don't always look like they do in the movies. Especially at night, symptoms can be vague: slight indigestion, fatigue, disturbed sleep. According to the American Heart Association, nearly half of all heart attacks in seniors are silent. The damage is real, but the signals are missed. During sleep, the body slows down. Blood pressure drops. Pain signals may not even register. That's what makes nighttime heart attacks so dangerous and so deadly. But it doesn't have to be this way. Regular checkups, especially for seniors with high blood pressure, diabetes, or cholesterol issues, can catch risks before they become tragedies. Even something as simple as monitoring fatigue, sleep patterns, or mild chest discomfort can make a difference. Frank's story didn't have to end that night. One small test, one earlier conversation, one night of caution might have changed everything. But by the time the body stopped whispering, no one was listening. 2. Sleep apnea, the silent oxygen thief. Linda Hayes had always been a sound sleeper. At 68, the retired librarian from Ohio loved her quiet routines: tea at 8, a crossword before bed, and lights out by 10. Her husband, Richard, used to tease her about her snoring, joking that it could shake the walls. But to them, it was harmless. Just a quirky part of life after retirement. What Richard didn't realize was that her snoring was hiding something far more dangerous: Over the past few months, he started noticing long pauses in Linda's breathing at night. At times, it seemed like she had stopped entirely, only to gasp suddenly, like she was choking on air. She never remembered it the next day, and she never complained. In fact, Linda always said she felt fine. But one morning, she didn't wake up. Richard called 911 in a panic. There was no sign of struggle, no warning. Her heart had stopped sometime in the night, leaving behind only questions. The medical examiner's findings were clear. Linda had severe, undiagnosed obstructive sleep apnea. Each night, her airway collapsed repeatedly while she slept, starving her brain and heart of oxygen, again and again, until one night it was too much. Sleep apnea is one of the most underdiagnosed and underestimated killers among older adults. It's often mistaken for simple snoring, but in truth, it's a condition that puts massive stress on the body, raising the risk of heart attacks, strokes, and sudden death, especially during sleep. What makes it so dangerous is how quietly it works. Many seniors blame their fatigue on aging. They wake up groggy or with headaches and think it's normal. But these are red flags, signs that something is deeply wrong. Fortunately, there's hope. A simple sleep study, often done at home, can reveal whether a person has sleep apnea. And treatments like a CPAP machine, which gently keeps airways open during sleep, have become quieter, more comfortable, and more effective than ever before. Even small changes, like sleeping on one side, losing a bit of weight, or avoiding alcohol before bed, can make a meaningful difference. Linda's story is a painful reminder. What seems like a harmless snore may be a warning cry from the body, one that can no longer afford to be ignored. 3. Atrial fibrillation, the hidden irregular heartbeat. Evelyn Brooks was a picture of grace. At 74, the former piano teacher still took long walks each morning, brewed herbal tea in the afternoon, and kept a meticulous garden that bloomed like clockwork each spring. Her life was calm, intentional, and beautifully composed, just like the music she once taught her students. But there was one thing that didn't quite fit the rhythm. Every so often, Evelyn would pause mid-conversation and press a hand to her chest. "It feels like a flutter," she once told her daughter, "like a bird beating its wings inside me." She always smiled afterward and brushed it off. "It's nothing, just nerves. Happens now and then." But one evening, after a quiet dinner with her grandchildren, Evelyn went to bed and never woke up. The doctors were puzzled at first. There were no signs of trauma, no heart attack, no stroke, at least not at first glance. But a deeper investigation revealed the truth. Evelyn had undiagnosed atrial fibrillation, or AFib. That gentle flutter she had dismissed was an irregular heartbeat, one that had caused a blood clot to form, travel to her brain, and trigger a fatal stroke in her sleep. AFib is often called the silent rhythm disorder for good reason. It can come and go without warning, or present with barely noticeable symptoms: fatigue, lightheadedness, a soft quiver in the chest. Most people chalk it up to stress or aging, but the danger is real. When the heart beats irregularly, blood can pool in its chambers. Over time, this increases the risk of clot formation. If one of those clots escapes and travels to the brain during sleep, the result can be instant and irreversible: a stroke with no time to react. According to the CDC, nearly 10% of adults over 65 have AFib, and many don't even know it. That's why regular ECG screenings, even ones from handheld devices, can be life-saving. Just 30 seconds can reveal a rhythm problem that might otherwise go undetected for years. Treatment can be simple: blood thinners to reduce clot risk, medications to stabilize the heartbeat. Even simple pulse checks at home can help spot a problem early. Evelyn's story is a haunting reminder that not every threat is loud. Sometimes, it's a whisper inside the chest, waiting to be heard. 4. Dangerous medication interactions. Helen Carter had spent her life managing others. As a former school principal, she was organized, disciplined, and never missed a detail. Her medicine cabinet reflected the same precision: rows of neatly labeled bottles. One for blood pressure, one for cholesterol, another for sleep, and a mild antidepressant she'd been on for years. Each prescribed by a different doctor, each taken exactly as directed. She trusted the system. She trusted the pills. One evening, Helen followed her usual routine: dinner at 6, a warm bath, her medications with a glass of water, and then off to bed with a book. Everything seemed ordinary, calm, controlled. But the next morning, she never woke up. Her husband found her lying peacefully, as if she were still asleep. No signs of distress, no warning. Just gone. The autopsy revealed a chilling truth. It wasn't a heart attack. It wasn't a stroke. It was the perfect storm. Multiple medications interacting silently overnight. The combination had lowered her heart rate and blood pressure to dangerous levels while she slept, slowly pushing her body past the point of recovery. What most people don't realize is that as we age, our bodies process medications differently. The liver and kidneys slow down, which means drugs that once worked perfectly fine in your 50s can linger longer, build up, and behave unpredictably in your 70s. Some medications, when combined, like beta blockers and certain sleep aids, can amplify each other's effects, creating lethal consequences at night. Others may shift blood sugar, electrolyte balance, or hydration levels, especially when left unchecked for hours during sleep. And the most dangerous part? No one is watching the full picture. Seniors often see multiple specialists, each prescribing with good intentions, but without coordination. That's why an annual medication review is essential. Sitting down with a pharmacist or primary care doctor, laying out every prescription, over-the-counter supplement, and vitamin, especially those taken at night, can reveal hidden risks. Sometimes, something as simple as switching one pill to the morning instead of bedtime can make all the difference. In other cases, unnecessary medications can be phased out entirely through a process called deprescribing. Helen followed the rules. She did everything right. But what she and so many others didn't know is that even well-meaning routines can turn deadly in silence. 5. Nocturnal hypoglycemia, the midnight blood sugar crash. Walter Reed had always been a hardworking man. A retired truck driver from Missouri, he took pride in staying active even after leaving the road. At 69, he had been managing type 2 diabetes for over a decade. He took his insulin faithfully, checked his levels, and had recently started walking more. He was doing everything right, at least that's what he thought. But Walter had a habit. He often skipped dinner, thinking it would help keep his blood sugar in check overnight. Better low than high, he would say. Some nights he ate barely anything before taking his usual insulin dose. He'd brush his teeth, settle into bed, and fall asleep feeling in control. One morning, his wife found him unresponsive. The paramedics arrived quickly, but it was already too late. The cause? A severe drop in blood sugar. Nocturnal hypoglycemia that struck while he slept and gave no warning. Unlike daytime hypoglycemia, which can bring sweating, shakiness, or confusion, nighttime lows are far more insidious. The body's usual alarm bells are muted during sleep. Some people might experience vivid dreams, restlessness, or wake up soaked in sweat, but many feel nothing at all. For diabetic seniors, especially those on insulin or sulfonylureas, the risk is real. As we age, glucose regulation becomes more fragile, and the body's ability to respond to low blood sugar weakens. Over time, repeated nighttime drops can dull the natural responses even further, making it harder to detect or recover. But it doesn't have to end like Walter's story. A few simple habits can offer powerful protection. First, never go to bed hungry. A light, balanced snack, like whole grain toast with peanut butter or a small apple with cheese, can help stabilize blood sugar through the night. Second, discuss insulin timing and dosage with your doctor. Skipping meals and taking a full dose can be a deadly combination. And finally, consider using a continuous glucose monitor, CGM. These devices can alert you, or a caregiver, to dangerous drops, even while you sleep. Walter thought he was being disciplined. Careful. Smart. But the truth is, skipping dinner didn't make him safer. It left him unprotected. And in the silence of the night, that choice became irreversible. 6. The final slowdown, natural end-of-life signs. Grace Bennett had lived a full, gentle life. At 91, the former nurse from Vermont had seen births, healed wounds, and held countless hands during times of pain. She was the rock of her family, the kind of woman who remembered birthdays, baked cookies from scratch, and still kept her garden blooming every spring. But in her final weeks, something began to shift. Grace started sleeping more during the day. She'd sit by the window for hours, quietly watching the trees sway, saying little. Her appetite faded. Meals she once enjoyed were left untouched. When her daughter Susan asked if she was feeling sick, Grace would just smile softly and say, "I'm just tired, sweetheart." There was no pain, no panic, just slowing down. Susan didn't know what to make of it. There were no dramatic symptoms, no emergency, just a subtle fading, like a candle burning low. It wasn't until the hospice nurse visited that everything became clear. Grace was entering the final stage of life. It's called active dying, and it doesn't happen suddenly. The body begins to prepare for its natural end, gradually conserving energy and letting go of what it no longer needs. Breathing patterns may change. Hands and feet grow cooler. Eating and drinking fade, not from despair, but because the body is no longer asking for fuel. For families who don't understand these signs, it can feel like a sudden loss. But in reality, the body had been whispering for days, even weeks. Recognizing these cues can transform fear into peace and allow loved ones to shift from trying to fix something to simply being present. Susan spent Grace's last days sitting beside her, reading aloud from her mother's favorite book, brushing her silver hair, holding her hand. No hospitals, no machines, just quiet love. When Grace passed in her sleep one early morning, it wasn't a shock. It was a release, a final exhale after a life well lived. Not every death is a tragedy. Some are a gentle goodbye, and sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is simply listen. Conclusion: the power of knowing. Each of these stories, Frank's quiet heart attack, Linda's silent struggle to breathe, Evelyn's hidden heartbeat, Helen's unintended medication mix, Walter's midnight blood sugar crash, and Grace's final peaceful slowdown, reminds us of one powerful truth. Death in sleep is often not sudden and rarely without warning. The signs are there. They whisper before they shout, through fatigue, disturbed sleep, a strange flutter in the chest, skipped meals, or subtle emotional withdrawal. But if no one's paying attention, those whispers are lost in the night. These 6 causes are not random. They follow patterns. They leave footprints. And that means they can be seen, understood, and in many cases, prevented. By listening more closely to the body, by asking better questions, by reviewing medications carefully, by paying attention to sleep patterns and daily habits, we gain something powerful: control. Awareness, peace of mind. Small changes, a snack before bed, a sleep study, an annual heart screening, a conversation with a doctor, can make the difference between a silent tragedy and another beautiful tomorrow. But most importantly, compassion matters. For ourselves, for those we love. Because when we understand what the body is trying to say, we stop fearing the unknown and begin responding with love, intention, and grace. Knowledge doesn't just bring answers. Sometimes it brings life. As we close this video, remember, this isn't the end of the conversation. It's just the beginning. Maybe something you heard today reminded you of someone you love. Maybe it made you pause and think about your own health in a new way. Don't ignore that feeling. Let it guide you. Talk to your doctor. Check in with your family. Ask the questions you've been putting off. Because the more we understand, the more we can protect the moments that truly matter. Life isn't just about living long. It's about living well, with awareness, dignity, and peace. If this video helped you, share it. You never know whose life it might change. And if you're part of this growing community of care, wisdom, and support, we're so glad you're here. Until next time, stay well, stay curious, and always stay connected.